Imagine this. You're facing a challenge so immense that it feels like the world is against you. A betrayal at work, a failed relationship, or perhaps a financial setback that keeps you up at night. Do you freeze, crumble, or do you rise? Here's something to ponder. A 2018 study by the Mental Health Foundation found that 74% of people felt so stressed they were overwhelmed or unable to cope at least once in the past year. What makes the difference between merely surviving and thriving? The answer lies in how we perceive and respond to adversity. Take a moment to consider a foundational idea from ancient Stoic practices. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote these words centuries ago, yet they echo with profound relevance today. But what do they mean in practice? Let's unravel this ancient wisdom through the eyes of Ethan, a modern-day software developer whose story will inspire you. Ethan was an ambitious 25-year-old working in the fast-paced world of tech startups. He'd built his life around achievements, always chasing the next promotion, the next big break, the next validation of his worth. But then it happened. A project he had poured months into was abruptly canceled due to critical flaws in the software development process. The codebase was riddled with unresolved bugs, and last-minute testing revealed that the product would not meet key performance benchmarks. Additionally, the development team had struggled to align on a unified vision for the project, leading to delays and miscommunication. These issues made the product unviable in its current form, and the leadership decided to pull the plug. To make matters worse, his boss, under pressure to justify the failure, made Ethan the scapegoat for the project's shortcomings in front of the entire team. Ethan was devastated. His confidence shattered, his reputation tarnished, and his future uncertain. For the first time, Ethan felt utterly powerless. He spent the following days spiraling. Endless loops of self-doubt played in his mind. What if I'm not good enough? What if I never recover from this? One night, as he scrolled aimlessly through his phone, he stumbled upon a podcast discussing how the speaker overcame some serious life challenges. Intrigued, Ethan clicked play. The speaker's voice was calm, yet commanding. Obstacles are not there to stop you. They're there to teach you, to transform you. He shared a deeply personal story about overcoming a devastating setback in his own life. After losing his business due to a major financial crisis, the speaker turned to the teachings of ancient Stoic philosophy to rebuild himself. He spoke about finding strength in Marcus Aurelius's words, the power of controlling his perceptions, and the discipline of focusing on what he could control. Ethan was skeptical but curious. He began reading Marcus Aurelius's meditations and discovered a truth he couldn't ignore. It wasn't the situation that was his problem. It was his perception of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Ethan realized he had been giving his power away by focusing on what he couldn't control. What if instead, he focused on what he could? Armed with this new perspective, Ethan started seeing his setback as an opportunity. First, he reframed the situation. Instead of viewing the project's failure as a personal defeat, he saw it as a chance to refine his skills and reassess his approach. He took responsibility, not in a self-blaming way, but in a way that empowered him to learn. He began documenting everything that had gone wrong, not as a list of failures, but as a blueprint for improvement. Ethan also adopted the practice of journaling, a core Stoic exercise. Each morning, he wrote down his intentions for the day, focusing on what was within his control, his effort, his attitude, and his responses. In the evenings, he reflected on what he had learned. Over time, this habit helped him develop clarity and resilience. Then came a breakthrough. One afternoon, while reviewing his notes, Ethan identified a recurring problem in his team's communication, a lack of clear roles and expectations. Instead of waiting for someone else to address it, he took the initiative. He drafted a new project workflow and presented it to his manager. To his surprise, the same boss who had criticized him was now impressed by his proactive approach. "This is exactly what we needed," he said. Ethan's reputation began to recover, but something deeper had changed within him. He no longer measured his worth by external outcomes. Success or failure, he realized, was less about what happened and more about how he responded. He was embodying the Stoic principle that suffering comes not from the event itself, but from our judgment about it. Halfway through his journey, Ethan faced another challenge. A close friend betrayed his trust by sharing confidential details about Ethan's struggles at work with others in their social circle. This betrayal not only damaged Ethan's reputation among friends, but also left him feeling humiliated and deeply hurt. He wondered, how could he overcome this deeply personal pain? He revisited the teachings of Epictetus, who said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Ethan paused and asked himself a critical question. Is holding on to this anger helping me or hurting me? Before we move on, I have a question for you. Have you ever faced a betrayal or setback that consumed you? How did you respond? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Ethan decided to forgive, not to absolve his friend's actions, but to free himself from the burden of resentment. He learned to focus on what he could control, his own peace of mind. This decision not only strengthened his emotional resilience, but also deepened his understanding of Stoic equanimity. But life wasn't finished testing him. Just as Ethan began to feel balanced again, his company announced mass layoffs. Ethan's name was on the list. The familiar pang of despair crept in. What would he do now? The stakes were higher, his savings were meager, and the job market was fiercely competitive. Yet Ethan decided this was his chance to apply what he had learned. He remembered a line from Seneca, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Ethan took time to reflect deeply. Instead of jumping into panic mode, he created a plan. He mapped out his skills and passions, considering what truly mattered to him. For years, he had ignored his love for writing, dismissing it as impractical. Now, he decided to embrace it. He began freelancing, writing articles about resilience and productivity. At first, the pay was modest, but the work reignited his sense of purpose. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan's articles began gaining traction. He was invited to speak at webinars, and even offered a consulting role to help companies foster resilient workplace cultures. Ironically, the layoff that had seemed like a curse turned into the catalyst for a career aligned with his values. Yet the challenges kept coming. One evening, as Ethan was preparing for a keynote speech, he received a call from his sister. Her voice trembled, barely holding back tears, as she explained their father had suffered a stroke and was in critical condition. The news hit Ethan like a tidal wave, crashing through the composure he had worked so hard to build. His heart raced, and his hands shook as he dropped everything and rushed to the hospital. When he arrived, the sterile smell of antiseptic and the low hum of machines amplified his dread. The sight of his once vibrant father lying motionless, tubes running from his body, shattered him. Ethan's chest tightened, his breath coming in shallow gasps as he tried to suppress a wave of emotion threatening to consume him. Memories of his father's laughter, his steady guidance, and his unwavering strength flashed through his mind, contrasting cruelly with the fragile figure before him. Ethan sank into the chair by his father's bedside, tears streaming down his face as he clutched his father's hand. "Please, not like this," he whispered, his voice breaking. In that moment, the weight of life's fragility pressed down on him like never before. For hours he sat there, oscillating between grief and a desperate hope, searching for strength in the vulnerability that enveloped him. In the quiet moments by his father's bedside, Ethan reflected on the Stoic idea of remembering that we all must die. It wasn't a morbid thought, but a clarifying one. It reminded him to cherish the present and to focus on what truly mattered. He held his father's hand, whispering words of gratitude and love, finding strength in vulnerability. After weeks of uncertainty, his father began to recover. The experience left Ethan changed. He realized that resilience wasn't just about professional success or mental fortitude. It was also about embracing life's impermanence with grace and using that awareness to deepen connections with those he loved. But Ethan's journey wasn't over. Life threw yet another curveball, one that tested the very core of his philosophy. A natural disaster struck his city, displacing thousands, including Ethan and his family. With their home damaged beyond repair, Ethan was forced to rely on community shelters and the kindness of strangers. The experience was humbling, even for someone practiced in Stoic principles. At the shelter, Ethan saw resilience in action. People who had lost everything still found ways to laugh, share stories, and support one another. Inspired, he began organizing mindfulness workshops for displaced families, teaching them the same Stoic techniques that had helped him navigate his own struggles. Journaling, gratitude practices, and reframing obstacles became tools of hope for many. For Ethan, the experience solidified a profound truth. When we lift others, we also lift ourselves. As the weeks passed, Ethan's efforts didn't go unnoticed. A local nonprofit organization offered him a role to continue his workshops on a broader scale. With their support, Ethan was able to secure temporary housing for his family and help other families transition into more stable living situations. His own family's new home was modest, but filled with gratitude and warmth, a stark contrast to the materialistic aspirations he had once chased. Standing in their new space, Ethan realized that the true wealth he had gained was far greater than anything he had lost. Ethan's journey illustrates a profound truth. Resilience is not about avoiding hardship. It's about meeting life's challenges with courage, wisdom, and grace. And this is something we can all cultivate. Start small. Begin by journaling your thoughts or practicing gratitude. Take a few moments each day to reflect on what you can control and let go of what you can't. As we near the end of Ethan's story, let's circle back to the wisdom that started it all. What stands in the way becomes the way. Through his journey, Ethan demonstrated that every challenge contains a hidden opportunity, a chance to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. So what can you take away from this? First, remember that you have the power to reframe any situation. Shift your focus from what's outside your control to what you can influence. Second, adopt Stoic practices like journaling, mindfulness, and self-reflection to build resilience. Third, see setbacks not as barriers, but as invitations to innovate and improve. As we close, I'll leave you with this thought. What if every obstacle you face is secretly guiding you to your greatest opportunity? If you enjoyed this video, please give a like and consider subscribing for more.